Number 1. Mahek Bukhari and Ansreen Bukhari. In early 2022, 24-year-old Mahek Bukhari, a popular social media influencer, and her 46-year-old mother, Ansreen Bukhari, became involved in a deadly plot that would ultimately lead to the tragic deaths of 2 men. The events began when Ansreen, who had been in an extramarital affair with 21-year-old Saqib Hussain, decided to end the relationship. Unwilling to accept the breakup, Saqib allegedly threatened to expose explicit videos and photographs of their time together, intending to coerce Ansreen into continuing the affair. In response to these threats, Mahek and Ansreen devised a plan to confront Saqib and retrieve the compromising material. Mahek made it clear in messages to her mother, stating, "I'll get him jumped by guys, and he won't know what day it is." She also warned Saqib, saying, "I am sorry that this year you'll be gone, Saqib." The 2 women lured Saqib to a meeting, telling him they would hand over 3,000 pounds he claimed to have spent during the affair. What Saqib didn't know was that Mahek and Ansreen had recruited 5 associates to assist them in their plan. On the night of the meeting, Saqib arrived at the designated meeting point in a Tesco car park in Leicester, accompanied by his friend, 21-year-old Muhammad Hashim Ijazuddin. As soon as they realized they had been set up, Saqib and Muhammad attempted to flee the scene in their car. What followed was a high-speed chase, with the pursuing vehicles reaching speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. During the chase, Saqib made a desperate 999 call, reporting that they were being followed by men in balaclavas who were trying to ram them off the road. Tragically, while still on the call, their vehicle was forced off the road, collided with a tree, and burst into flames, killing both Saqib and Muhammad instantly. After the crash, Mahek and Ansreen did not contact the police. Instead, they drove away from the scene, leaving the 2 men to die. A passing driver eventually called emergency services, alerting them to the horrific crash. An extensive investigation led by Leicestershire police found that Mahek, Ansreen, and their accomplices had orchestrated the entire sequence of events. CCTV footage and mobile phone data were key pieces of evidence that implicated them in the pursuit and murder. During the investigation, Mahek lied to the police about their whereabouts the day before the incident, further undermining her credibility. At the trial, Mahek Bukhari was found guilty of 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years and 8 months. Her mother, Ansreen Bukhari, was also convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years and 9 months. The other accomplices received various sentences based on their roles in the crime. As of July 2025, Mahek Bukhari has served approximately 1 year and 9 months of her life sentence. Number 2, Shea Groves. On July 17th, 2022 in Havant, Hampshire, 27-year-old Shea Groves fatally stabbed her 25-year-old boyfriend, Frankie Fitzgerald, while he was asleep in her bedroom. The attack was violent, with Frankie suffering over 20 stab wounds, leading to his death at the scene. Shea and Frankie had a complicated relationship, one marked by obsession and volatility. They bonded over their shared interest in true crime, a fascination that seemed to dominate their lives. Shea had decorated her bedroom with framed pictures of infamous serial killers and murderers, and she owned several knives, one of which she would use in the murder. She was particularly interested in notorious criminals like Charles Bronson, and her collection of weapons seemed to reflect her deepening obsession. On the night of the murder, Shea and Frankie had set up a camera in their bedroom, planning to film an intimate moment. But instead of intimacy, the night ended in violence. After killing Frankie, Shea didn't call the police right away. Instead, she cleaned up the scene, had a cigarette, and then called a friend via video chat. During the call, she showed the lifeless body of Frankie, casually confessing that she had snapped and repeatedly stabbed him. She also claimed that Frankie had been abusive toward her, showing video clips to support her allegations. The friend, concerned and horrified by what she had seen, contacted the authorities. When the police arrived, they began investigating the scene, and it didn't take long to uncover the truth. Shea's claims of abuse turned out to be fabricated. The text messages and videos she had shared with her friend were proven to be manipulated. In fact, Shea had been tracking Frankie's movements out of jealousy, especially after she discovered that he had been messaging a person she thought was a 13-year-old girl. It later turned out that the person was actually 17 and had been blocked by Frankie before the murder. At the trial, Shea pleaded not guilty, claiming she had acted in self-defense after being attacked by Frankie. However, the prosecution presented compelling evidence showing that the murder had been premeditated. They highlighted her obsession with crime, her collection of weapons, and the calculated way she had staged the scene. Shea was familiar with creating false narratives and had carefully crafted an alibi. Frankie's parents spoke of their son in court, describing him as a kind, loving father who had his whole life ahead of him. They expressed the devastation they felt after losing him. The jury found Shea Groves guilty of murder, and on February 22, 2023, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years before being eligible for parole. Shea remained expressionless as she was sentenced, showing no visible remorse for her actions. As of July 2025, Shea Groves has served approximately 2 years of her 23-year minimum sentence. She remains in a UKI prison with no doubts or 21 years still to serve before she can be considered for parole. Number 3, Sharon Carr. At just 12 years old, Sharon Carr, who would later be known as the Devil's Daughter, committed a brutal and unprovoked murder that shocked the nation. On the night of the attack, 18-year-old Katie Ratcliffe, an apprentice hairdresser, was walking home from a nightclub in Camberley, Surrey, when Sharon randomly chose her as her victim. Sharon, who had been walking nearby with some accomplices, attacked Katie, stabbing her over 30 times. After the murder, Sharon and her accomplices left Katie's body abandoned near a cemetery, where it was discovered the following day by a group of young boys. At first, the police had no leads, and they suspected that the crime had been committed by an adult male, given the brutality of the attack. Sharon, who was initially not considered a suspect, was not apprehended until 2 years later after another violent incident. In 1994, Sharon attacked a fellow student at Collingwood College Comprehensive School. She stabbed the student without provocation, smiling as she did so. The attack was stopped only when other students intervened, and the victim was left severely injured. Sharon was taken to a hospital for a medical assessment after the incident, but quickly showed further violent tendencies, even harassing the nurses who treated her. Sharon's behavior in the hospital was concerning enough that authorities decided to investigate her more thoroughly. It wasn't long before they linked her to the murder of Katie Ratcliffe, a crime she had committed 2 years earlier. During questioning, Sharon confessed to the killing, providing graphic and accurate details about the attack, details that had been kept from the public, which only the killer would have known. Her confession was chilling, and she even documented her thoughts in a prison diary, stating, "If only I could do it to you again. I was born to be a murderer." On the 4th anniversary of Katie's murder, Sharon even wrote a note in her diary saying, "Respect to Katie Ratcliffe, 4 years ago today." With her confessions and the evidence she provided, Sharon was formally charged with Katie's murder. In March 1997, at 17 years old, she became Britain's youngest ever convicted murderer. The trial was a significant moment in British legal history, not just because of her age, but because of the nature of the crime. Despite being a young teenager, Sharon's actions were deemed particularly violent, and the court did not take her age into account when it came to sentencing. Sharon was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years. As of now, Sharon Carr has served around 28 years of her life sentence. Even though she has surpassed her minimum term by 14 years, she remains incarcerated due to concerns about her mental state and violent tendencies. Sharon has been denied parole multiple times, as assessments indicate that she still poses a risk to others. At 45 years old, she remains in prison, with no indication that she will be released anytime soon. Number 4, Lucy Letby. Between June 2015 and June 2016, a troubling pattern emerged at the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital in Cheshire, England. There was a significant and unexplained spike in infant deaths and collapses, raising concerns among medical staff. Initially, the incidents were viewed as coincidences, but as more babies suffered unexpected medical crises, suspicions began to grow. The hospital conducted an internal review, which ultimately identified one person who was present during all of the incidents, 33-year-old nurse Lucy Letby. Concerned consultants alerted hospital management, but initial actions were not taken to investigate her. It wasn't until May 2017 that the hospital reported the concerns to the Cheshire Constabulary, prompting a formal police investigation. The investigation, dubbed Operation Hummingbird, involved a detailed review of medical records and autopsy reports. The authorities discovered patterns suggesting harm, including the administration of air and insulin injections, overfeeding, and physical assaults on the babies. Lucy Letby, the primary suspect, was arrested in July 2018, but was released on bail. As more evidence emerged, she was rearrested twice, in 2019 and 2020. In October 2022, Lucy Letby's trial began at Manchester Crown Court. The prosecution presented compelling evidence, including the deaths of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 6 others, all of whom were under Letby's care. The babies were all vulnerable, premature infants, and the circumstances surrounding their deaths raised suspicions of deliberate harm. In August 2023, after months of testimony and deliberation, the jury found Letby guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, making her one of the few women in UK history to receive such a sentence. Since her conviction, a new development has emerged. Investigators now believe that Lucy Letby may have harmed more babies than the 7 she was convicted of, with further cases under review. Her actions have shocked the nation, and many continue to grapple with the devastating impact of her crimes on the families involved. As of July 2025, Lucy Letby has served approximately 1 year and 10 months of her life sentence. Given her whole life order, she will remain incarcerated for the rest of her life. Number 5, Veronique John. On June 10th, 2023, in Stoke-on-Trent, England, 50-year-old Veronique John made a chilling call to emergency services, claiming that she had just murdered her children. The call came just a day after a violent incident involving her husband, Nathan John. Veronique had assaulted Nathan with a piece of wood, suspecting he was having an affair. She was arrested, but was released the following day with a community resolution notice. Hours after her release, Veronique attacked her 11-year-old son, Ethan, and 7-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, in their home on Flack Street. Ethan suffered over 20 stab wounds, while Elizabeth also sustained severe injuries. Both children were pronounced dead at the scene. After the attack, Veronique left the house and went to a car wash on Campbell Road, where her husband worked. There, she used the same knife to attack Nathan. Despite his injuries, Nathan survived the attack. Afterward, Veronique returned home and called emergency services. When police arrived, she told them, "If you have a gun, shoot me. I am not a monster. He was going to take them from me." Veronique was arrested at the scene. Investigations revealed that her marriage to Nathan had been a toxic one, marked by frequent arguments. Veronique later confessed that the murders of her children were driven by her belief that Nathan wanted to take them away from her. Police also discovered that in the days leading up to the attack, Veronique had searched online asking, "Can a foreigner be charged with murder in the UK?" She admitted to the crime, stating, "I did it because I love my children, to protect the children. If there's any possible way I could be put to death, I would like that. I mean it 100%. Due to her diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, Veronique was deemed unfit to plead or participate in a standard trial. As a result, a trial of facts was conducted at Nottingham Crown Court. In July 2024, the jury concluded that Veronique had committed the acts as charged. She was given an indefinite hospital order under the Mental Health Act and is currently held at Rampton High Security Hospital in Nottinghamshire. As of July 2025, Veronique has served approximately 11 months of this order. The duration of her confinement will depend on ongoing assessments of her mental health and the level of risk she may pose. Number 6, Virginia McCullough. She was a 31-year-old woman, lived with her elderly parents in Chelmsford, Essex. She had taken on the role of their primary caregiver, as both her father, John, and mother, Lois, were in poor health. However, Virginia's relationship with her parents was complicated by her mounting financial troubles. She had accumulated significant debt and had been mismanaging her parents' finances, using their bank accounts for her own purposes. In June 2019, Virginia took a deadly step to cover up her financial misdeeds. She prepared a cocktail of prescription drugs and added it to the drinks she gave her 70-year-old father and 71-year-old mother. Her father drank the poison mixture and passed away in his sleep, while her mother, who hadn't consumed the drink, was left unaware of what had happened. Fearing that her mother might discover the truth, Virginia resorted to further violence. The next day, when she realized her mother was still alive, Virginia attacked Lois in her bedroom. She first used a hammer to strike her mother, then turned to a knife, stabbing Lois multiple times until she died. After the murders, Virginia took several steps to conceal the crime. She went to a local hospital to receive treatment for the wounds she had suffered during the attacks, then began purchasing items to hide the bodies. She concealed her father's remains in a makeshift tomb made from masonry blocks and wooden panels inside the house, while her mother's body was hidden in an upstairs wardrobe. Virginia continued to carry out fraudulent activities after the deaths, using her parents' credit cards and collecting their pensions. She even went as far as to impersonate her mother to request a new credit card from the bank. The deception continued for more than 4.5 years, with Virginia living with her parents' bodies without anyone suspecting the truth. In September 2023, concerns from family members and medical professionals about the prolonged absence of John and Lois prompted a welfare check by Essex police. When officers entered the home, they discovered the bodies of her parents hidden inside the house. She was arrested at the scene. When apprehended, she calmly remarked to the officers, "I did know that this day would come eventually. Cheer up. At least you've caught the bad guy." She was charged with 2 counts of murder, and in July 2024, she pleaded guilty. The court highlighted the premeditated nature of the crime and the gross violation of her parental trust. On sentencing, the judge emphasized how Virginia's actions had caused immense harm and broken the bond of trust between a mother and daughter. Virginia McCullough was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 36 years before she could be considered for parole. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 9 months of her life sentence and will need to serve at least 35 years before she is eligible for parole. Number 7, Gemma Mitchell. Gemma Mitchell, a 38-year-old woman from Australia, moved to the UK with her mother and sister after her parents' separation. She excelled academically, earning a first-class degree in human sciences from King's College London, with a particular focus on anatomy. Despite her academic success, Gemma never pursued a career in osteopathy, remaining unemployed after 2015. Living with her family in a dilapidated £4 million house in Willesden, northwest London, Gemma had a strained relationship with her sister, and tensions only grew after the family discovered they had been defrauded of £230,000 by builders hired for home renovations. In August 2020, Gemma met 67-year-old Miwin Chong at their local church. Miwin, originally from Kuala Lumpur, had lived in London for 30 years and suffered from mental health issues, which she was described by some church members as sweet-natured but childlike in her demeanor. Miwin agreed to help Gemma with the home renovations, offering to lend her £200,000. However, after some time, Miwin withdrew the offer, suggesting instead that Gemma sell the house and use the money herself. This change of heart triggered a confrontation that would lead to Miwin's tragic death. On June 11, 2021, Gemma visited Miwin's home in Wembley, carrying a large blue suitcase. It's believed that during this visit, Gemma murdered Miwin and placed her body inside the suitcase. Afterward, she stole documents from Mewin's home, including paperwork that she later attempted to use to forge a will that would leave Mewin's $700,000 estate to her. Gemma then transported the suitcase back to her own home, where she stored it in the garden for 2 weeks. On June 26, 2021, Gemma drove more than 200 miles to Salcombe, Devon, where she disposed of Mewin's body in a wooded area. Parts of the body were found the next day by holidaymakers, and the remaining parts were discovered 4 days later. Mewin had been reported missing by her lodger, and Gemma initially told the police that Mewin had gone to visit family friends by the sea. However, CCTV footage from Mewin's home showed Gemma entering the house with the suitcase and leaving hours later with it, which appeared to be much heavier. Further investigation revealed the forged will, which claimed Mewin had left the majority of her estate to Gemma. This evidence led to Gemma's arrest. Gemma was charged with murder and stood trial at the Old Bailey in October 2022. Despite pleading not guilty, the jury found her guilty after deliberating for 7 hours. On October 28, 2022, Judge Richard Marks, KC, sentenced Gemma to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years. In his remarks, the judge highlighted the deviousness of Gemma's actions and her complete lack of remorse for the murder. As of July 2025, Gemma Mitchell has served approximately 2 years and 8 months of her minimum sentence. She will be eligible for parole consideration in October 2055 when she is 72 years old. Number 8, Bailey Haywood. On March 13th, 2024, at approximately 12:20 p.m., emergency services received a call reporting that a man had been injured at an address on Moreland Road in Bicester. When police officers arrived at the scene, they found 45-year-old Dale Bond in his lounge with multiple stab wounds. Despite immediate medical attention from officers and paramedics, Dale was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation quickly led authorities to 23-year-old Bailey Haywood, who was found with bloodstained clothing. She was arrested on suspicion of murder, and a detailed investigation was launched by Thames Valley Police Major Crime Unit. An autopsy confirmed that Dale's death was caused by a fatal stab wound. Bailey's defense during the trial was that she had acted in self-defense, claiming that Dale had attacked her first. However, there was no evidence to support her claims. The prosecution argued that there was no indication that Dale had been violent or posed a threat to her. Bailey's story was met with skepticism by the jury, and after reviewing the evidence, they rejected her defense. There were no witnesses to the alleged attack, and no substantial evidence suggested that she had acted in self-defense. After a trial at Oxford Crown Court, Bailey was convicted of murder. On the day of sentencing, the judge noted the senselessness of the crime and the lack of any provocation that could justify the violence. On March 13, 2024, Bailey Haywood was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years and 181 days before being eligible for parole. As of July 2025, Bailey has served approximately 7 months of her minimum sentence. She will be eligible for parole consideration in December 2041 when she reaches the age of 41. Number 9, Natalie Bennett. It was March 11, 2023 in Carl Lane East, Croxteth, Liverpool. Neighbors heard a loud argument between 47-year-old Natalie Bennett and her 24-year-old boyfriend, Casey Anderson, coming from Bennett's home. About an hour after the shouting stopped, Casey appeared at a neighbor's house, clearly injured and asking for help. There, he managed to call emergency services, telling the operator multiple times that he was dying. His injuries were so severe, he couldn't explain who had hurt him. During the call, Natalie took the phone and told the operator that Casey had several stab wounds. She claimed she didn't know how he got them, saying, "He's come in like that," insisting he had arrived at her house already injured. Not too long after Merseyside police arrived, they found Casey with serious injuries, including a deep stab wound that had damaged vital organs plus several other cuts. He was rushed to Aintree Hospital and underwent surgery, but sadly, he died from his injuries just a week later, Shortly before his 25th birthday, police had already arrested Natalie at the scene on that very day. The investigation revealed major problems with her story. Ring doorbell footage from a nearby house captured Bennett holding a knife close to Casey's head, completely contradicting her claim that he arrived already wounded. Inside her home, police noticed a strong smell of cleaning products and found multiple sharp knives in the kitchen sink that appeared freshly cleaned. During the incident, witnesses claimed to have heard Bennett call the dying Casey a little rat as he struggled to phone for help. At Liverpool Crown Court, Bennett pleaded not guilty to murder, claiming self-defense. She insisted Casey had attacked her first. The jury rejected her defense after reviewing all the evidence. On October 4th, 2023, following more than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously convicted Bennett of murder. She received a life sentence on November 10, 2023, with a minimum of 18 years before parole eligibility. Judge Dennis Watson, KC, stated during sentencing, "No sentence I can pass can restore Casey's life. His friends and family will always mourn his death. Your actions have caused the waste of a human life." Bennett showed no emotion during sentencing as officers led her to the cells. She gave a thumbs up to her father in the public gallery. As of July 2025, Natalie Bennett has completed approximately 1 year and 5 months of her 18-year minimum sentence. Number 10, Karen Vamplew. In the early hours of December 15th, 2021, a tragic event unfolded in Newark, Nottinghamshire, resulting in the death of 77-year-old Elizabeth Ann Vamplew. Elizabeth, who had limited mobility and hearing impairments, relied on daily caregivers and was known for taking cigarettes inside her bungalow at Eaton Court. Her daughter-in-law, 44-year-old Karen Vamplew, had been her primary caregiver. However, Karen had accumulated significant debts and had been illicitly accessing funds from Elizabeth's bank account, draining it from £27,000 to just £105 within a few months. This led the bank to impose restrictions on Elizabeth's account due to suspicious activities. Karen's access to the funds was cut off. On December 14th, 2021, Karen accompanied Elizabeth to the bank, attempting to remove the transaction restrictions. Later that night, she visited Elizabeth's home twice. During her first visit, CCTV showed her parking away from the house, wearing a black hoodie, before going inside. This time, she deliberately set fire to Elizabeth's bed while she was asleep using a naked flame. Afterward, Karen left the premises only to return later, feigning discovery of the fire and contacting emergency services. Despite rescue efforts, Elizabeth succumbed to severe burns and smoke inhalation. Initially, authorities suspected the fire might have been an accident, but the nature of the flames, along with Karen's financial motive, raised suspicions. Police discovered CCTV footage showing Karen returning to the scene and further evidence in her home. The fire was determined to be intentionally set, ruling out an accidental cause such as a dropped cigarette. She initially claimed she had no knowledge of how Elizabeth was injured, but investigators uncovered inconsistencies in her story, and she was arrested on December 17th, 2021, but released the same day due to insufficient evidence. However, after further investigation, a substantial amount of evidence was gathered, leading to her rearrest. At her trial, the prosecution presented strong evidence of Karen's premeditated actions, driven by financial gain. On May 20th, 2024, Karen was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 32 years before being eligible for parole. As of July 2025, Karen Vamplew has served approximately 1 year of her life sentence. If you watched to the end, thank you. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss the second part. This is Criminals Profile.